Good evening. Public Safety Building Committee meeting. I'll call meeting order for Monday, July 8th. Mr. Moorhead and Mr. Berry will not be here tonight. Mr. Rooney did not meet his swearing-in deadline, missed it by hours, I'm told. So he's allowed to participate but not vote and does not count towards a quorum, but we do have a full quorum, so asked him to participate like he always does, just because he will be, as soon as he gets reappointed by the Board of Selectmen, he'll be running down to the town clerk's office to get sworn in. First action item is approval of meeting minutes from June 17th. Is there any questions, comments from Mr. Lyons? Seeing none, I'll make a motion that we approve those as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wood. Any further conversation? All in favor? Alright, I need 2 out of the 3 absents to vote unless you have an objection to them. So I got 6-0. Chairman's update. We had an extensive conversation at the last meeting on the August 13th date and the associated costs with it. I'm happy to report that CTA has held up their end of the bargain and provided a weekly schedule since then. That schedule has shown no slippage on their aspect of the project. I think even some of the items have been done ahead of time, such as the paving for anyone that's driven by the facility in the last week or so. I will ask when we get to the owner's project manager report, just for Bill and Kevin to just highlight, there's a lot of town contractors such as radios, dispatch, etc. that is consuming a lot of their time, so I'll ask them to kind of highlight what impacts they may see on the project schedule. But as of now, thankfully 3 weeks have passed and there's nothing new to report, which I think is a really good thing given we're about a month out. Next item is change order ownership meeting. I've had this on the agenda a long time. I'm happy to report that I did have a conversation with Jeff Vertex, I think it was about a week and a half ago now, outlined kind of and reminded them of some of the items that kind of went through kind of a list of, I'll call it major items that have come before the committee, and tried to take the temperature of the table and certain change orders, et cetera, and just overall how the project has run. Where we left it before he left to go overseas on a trip is that he does not anticipate to bill the town any additional fees for the time that the project has gone beyond, but he also will be bringing forward a proposal to myself, which I'll then present back to the committee, of a credit on kind of some of the final invoices on the project. What that amount is, we haven't talked about yet. I asked him to kind of bring that forward, but I think it was comforting to me to know that, we're not incurring any additional fees from them, given that we've obviously given CTA extra money, but also that there's something coming off kind of the back end, which I think is in line with what the committee was expecting. So we're not going to negotiate in public session, but I think what I've asked Jeff to come back to me with is kind of what his number is, and then assuming that that is a palatable number, the committee will vote much like we did with the CTA thing. If it's not a palatable number, then we'll have to do an executive session to kind of hash through that and come to final terms, but we have some time to deal with that, and I think we're on record with where we stand. I think in general the 2 parties are moving in the right direction on that. Any questions? Monthly project related updates, other than the timeline, which I think has been kind of what the level of communication has been between myself, Mark, and the Vertex team. I would just say I walked the building a few hours ago, did a quick lap, and the epoxy flooring, for example, is down in the apparatus bay. I mean, the finishing touches are going on it. I think there was numerous kitchen appliances delivered today. Won't talk too much about the fridge with the huge dent in the back of it, but thankfully I think the right level of, I'm comfortable that the right level of oversight there. Not only did Vertex catch it, but CTA caught it. So the $4,000 fridge, I think, was put back on the truck and taken off site. So I think it's really coming together, and you can see how they might actually be occupying that building in a couple months. Not less than, between 1 and 2 months, obviously. Closer to the 1. Any other questions on that? I guess with that, I'll turn it over to the Vertex team. If there's anything you wanted to highlight, I think the one thing I'd like you to highlight for the benefit of the committee that doesn't hear it on a daily basis is just kind of the other subs you're managing other than CTA, and just anything else you think is pertinent that we know as we head into the next 2 weeks. Jason. Go ahead.
But can this committee get one additional walkthrough before it's open?
I'll defer to you guys on what you think works
We can
best.
talk to them tomorrow.
Okay.
What day or time
What,
would be,
I'm pretty flexible, so I don't know what the...
I'm pretty flexible. How are you for flexibility down there, John? What, you pretty flexible?
So flexible, it's disgusting.
I'd suggest you guys come back with a few
Yeah.
options based on what's going on the site on a given day, and
Thank you.
we'll furnish that out.
Thank
well,
you.
we'll try to do is just do it later on, like we did today. A later time start, so they're all done. And we should be able to have a plan walking around.
Yeah.
So just to touch real quickly on what Jason just said, we are currently managing several town vendors to complete work in the fire station, police station area. Some of that has to do with dispatch. That includes roughly 4 separate vendors working in that area. We're also doing the furniture as well, which was started by the fire department, and now we're in a constant discussion with him to get his schedule down. I'll let Bill lead into more of maybe the difficulties that we're having with everybody, only because of schedule, to try to fit everybody into small areas. But we had tried very hard to schedule these things out months ago with deadlines that we had to meet. And for one reason or another, something got pushed out. That room wasn't available, but we are working very diligently right now to bring that back in. So the next one coming up right now will be the dispatch and the furniture coming in. You want to explain?
Yeah, so a lot of the vendors, for example, we wanted to try to have Donegan, who's doing a lot of the lockers, the personnel lockers. We held them off in the men's locker room primarily because we need to coordinate with Chief Paulus a temporary solution, because that's where the officers, that's their lifeline, that's where they have everything daily. So they need something temporary before we can move everything from here to get it over there. The second part of that is nobody wants to carry furniture up the stairs, they all want the elevator. So most of them have priced it as such. So we've been making a strong push over the last 2 weeks to have the electrician turn on the power ever since National Grid came out. So they have turned the power on. So it's ready to go. The issue is they need the elevator inspected first, which could be, typically you see about 30 days. They like to wait to sign off on the elevator before they come out and do the inspection. We can hire the elevator company to come out and push the button if we absolutely need to do that.
Why don't you just share what that cost is, because I think.
Yeah, so to do that, it's anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000.
For the company to come and inspect it?
No,
No,
for the company
push the
just to
button.
come push the button. And they will charge you for a full day, even if it's for 2 hours of work, unfortunately.
So you're saying we wouldn't have to do this, we wouldn't pay the 4 or 5, except that we want to do it now?
Potentially. That's where kind of like that's kind of where the schedule issue is in terms of us handling the town vendors.
Okay.
Everything's
Go
coming
back
to
for
a
a
ball.
second.
Yeah.
For the elevator, the
Yep.
elevator's in,
Yep.
and electricity supplied.
Yep.
We think it works. We wait 30 days after it's operational to make sure there's nothing wrong before we have it inspected.
No, so the idea is that they want to give a lead time on, so they'll tell you 30 days out until they come inspect it.
Okay.
Everything should be, I haven't personally experienced any issues during an inspection. They come out, it's pretty straightforward. You have the fire alarm, the telephone's working, all the controls are working.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of how booked are they and can they,
Okay.
you know.
What does the $4,000 to $5,000 get you now?
It gets the elevator contractor to operate the elevator for you.
But it doesn't
without
expedite
an
the
inspection.
permit process.
It gets you without an inspection. He'll run it on his own.
Right.
That's legal?
Yeah, it's his
Yes.
elevator.
Yes, so that is the legal way to do it. I've offered to just sit
So
there. and
literally
push
he
the
hit 2 for you?
button. What's that?
He just comes in and hits 2?
So
Yeah,
all the
pretty much.
furniture goes up, so you guys make the
It's,
Two back to one.
it's the
2-1.
it's the best business going right now if you work for an elevator company. unfortunately.
And
So,
if the furniture movers do not use the elevator and have to use the stairs, they're gonna give us a different cost?
potentially, currently in the process of working out, all of those particulars right now. The bigger issue is we needed the dispatch room ready, just to go down the list of the other vendors that are coming in. They need the floor, they need the server room ready. So the server room, they just got their flooring, right before the holiday. They, require a door on there because they're gonna have certain racks, they're gonna have very expensive data on there. So it's moving parts, we're pushing CTA the best we can to get all this stuff done, so it's ready. So a little bit as them not having certain things ready, as fast as we wanted them to. So it's kind of taken the trickle down effect. Now with that being said, we have dispatch scheduled for the 17th, with hopes that they will actually come, we'll get cancellation, they'll be able to come beforehand. However, Motorola will not come until the dispatch furniture is complete because that's where they're bringing everything for the radio communications. E911 is also associated with that. They won't come in until the dispatch consoles are done. So that's kind of the big one. Now E911 they've told me they're about a day or two tops. Motorola said they're about 2 to 2.5 weeks from start to complete. So right now everything is scheduled that it will be done pretty close to the 13th, if not beforehand. So we're still working to try to push them. The big one is the furniture vendors, getting done, can you come in and just start doing certain rooms on the first floor? Same thing with WB, because there are rooms that are ready, but on our end, along with, particularly with Ellen, the design team, we have to do a punch list before they'll put the furniture in. And the reason you do that is because once they start digging walls, they're gonna have to be the ones who fix it. So that way, it's on them. So right now, the schedule for all the town vendors is in line to finish, like I said, before the 13th, possibly right on the 13th, which will allow the stations to then move in the following days. So, but we're chasing them, constant phone calls and communication to see if we can start moving things up. And like I said, we got Verizon scheduled for the telephone line for the elevator this week, Wednesday. So that'll be the end of sort of our responsibility, and then it's back on the contractor to get the fire alarm up and running and when they can get the inspection. So we're hoping that happens fairly quickly.
Any questions? All right, should we move on to change orders? So tonight, the only change order we have in front of us is the tight tank redesign drainage, which we've actually already approved. We just have the final cost as opposed to the time and materials not to exceed. So we did this on a CCD basis. Are there any questions on this one? All right, so I'll move that we approve PCO 126R1 / CCD 25R1 as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Goodney. Any further conversation? All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, so carries unanimously. The other thing I asked the context team to be doing on a regular basis was to provide a list of items, like as they get it, what they're reviewing, even if it never is going to come forward to us, just because we're so close to the end. So that was the document that was attached as a Word document memo from Ellen. I'm not sure there's a need to go through each one unless there's specific questions from the committee members. Most are actually old items that we have either already approved or already provided direction on. There's just what I'll call a lag in how the paperwork is getting done. So I've asked that that not continue and that this basically be a clean slate by the next time we get to the next meeting.
I'm not sure I understand exactly what you're asking them to do. If you look at their spreadsheet, the big one, that they go detail the change
Yeah.
orders, that spreadsheet ties out to the first page through change order 14.
Yes.
It's all there, you tie it up perfectly, right? I still can't, I can't tie out. I don't know, I've never been able to tie out their change orders to it, but I assume somebody can do it. So, if you look at that spreadsheet, the second page, there's a lot of blanks. for future this and that, where, you know, the numbers are consecutive, are those just never gonna be used?
That's basically what it is, like someone asked for something and it got rejected before it ever came to us.
Okay,
But, so what this list is in front of us is the list of things that could potentially come before us for a vote. So let me give you an example, right? So on first floor electrical revisions, we've already voted on PCO 100 months ago. We actually approved it. The problem is the verbiage that they have in the written document doesn't align to what the committee stated them to. This was one of the items they were asking for time. We said no time. Then we kind of reached our compromise. There's stuff like that that's inconsistent that the team is saying we can't bring it forward to because it's inconsistent with what you asked. There are other things like PCO 130 that CTA keeps on the list. We rejected that at the last meeting. And there's been no new facts presented to us, so why are we going to talk about it again? Just talk about it. So what I'm expecting by the time we get to the next meeting is that Ellen's kind of well-called Word document that she provided, that only contain items that we've never talked about before, and that they kind of do some maintenance on some of these items, because there was like a golf item that came up that had been approved and done for a year, but they never formalized it from a written perspective to Mark. So that's really what I'm getting at, Kathy.
okay, so I'm being dense here. So as far as what to expect after tonight, remember, so what I did, you know, I'm still trying to keep track of that. So right now, if we look at the committed cost, which John Lemieux told me that's what I should use,
Mhm.
right? We're at 19,211,845, right? And then add on land, we're at 24,102, which we're still below at 24,2, right? There's nothing from moving here, so we don't, that's kind of that.
Mhm.
So what else is going to be added? So we've got PCO, or CO, we're through 14. Everything here, what I don't know is whether these CCDs are part of that spreadsheet.
The big ones are, because I asked John, because they were so large,
Okay,
they've asked them, they're in there.
okay. So most of what's here is in there too.
Some is, and some isn't.
So what are you expecting money-wise after this?
I would say if this was our final meeting and we're in the building, this would be it. But I'm not naive to know that there are items in the building that will continue to pop up as they finish things off that could be 1,000 here or there. That I'm not gonna say that this is your final list, but this is what they're saying they know about today.
This is all we know about today.
Correct.
Okay.
And some of which won't even come ever for a vote.
So this is, if we were cutting it up today, this would be the worst case here is right here.
Doesn't mean that something won't happen tomorrow, but I think that's the best that they're willing to put on paper at this point. So the other thing Kathy said, thing I know, so I have asked, John's on vacation this week, I've asked for him to have a meeting with myself, Mark, Heidi, and I think you should be in as an advisory representative, to really refine that spreadsheet and have, like, there are some items that we're never gonna spend money on. Like if we're never gonna spend money, for example, on or cut Tom's technology thing down, I think we had 150 and we've only allocated 68. Maybe he'll need a little extra to do a few final touches, but he's not gonna need 150. Really kind of hone in and get as precise as we can, so that as we get to these final couple of meetings, that it really is a pretty simple exercise, a plug and play. Almost help him design what we need as a town to go back to the voters to say, this is really where it came out, this is where we spent your money. So I'll be in touch about that. Any questions on any of these other things that are sitting out here? Anything else we need to be aware of that's not in writing yet?
No, because a lot of it we're still looking into.
One question, Jason.
Yes.
I asked about the typical punch list a number of meetings ago. A punch list is created. Is there generally any expense associated with dealing with those punch list items? I assume they're not structural changes, or is it somewhat minimal in terms of additional costs that we would expect to be asked?
Are you asking what we find and put on the punch list?
Yes.
Most of those items that we find on the punch list are maybe code base was missing in the corner, a contractor has to finish it.
Okay.
It's things that he was supposed to do that he hasn't done yet.
No cost associated with
No,
the town?
the time when the cost comes into play is when we go towards the end and we give our list to contacts will then provide it to CTA. Everybody starts doing their thing, hopefully in a timely fashion. If it gets to the point where they have not completed several of those items, then we will get together as a team, put a monetized punch list together and say, okay, it's gonna, we feel this item should cost $5,000 to complete. If you don't do it, we're gonna do it, and we're gonna take it out.
But I assume that that's a living document.
It changes every
You've
day.
been working on it with them so that when you get to that point, the volume of changes should be relatively small in number.
We try not to use the word punch list,
Okay,
because
what
when
should
you
I use?
provide the punch list, observation list.
Okay,
When you provide a quote-unquote punch list to somebody, that's all he gets to go off of. You're not really allowed to add to that document. It's an observation list. And then finally, after we've all met together and figured out, okay, this is actually all of it, then you issue it to them, but with the caveat that says, we may add an item or two if observed later on. That's why it's difficult. If we put all the furniture in now,
right, okay.
we might have missed something on the
But you're
wall. we can't
already,
see
you're
behind.
already creating this observation.
It's already started.
list. Okay.
And
Thank
the
you.
warranty in the general contractor's contract
Mhm.
is what?
Usually for items, it's 1 year. After substantial completion is provided, they give you 1 year. Some items like the roof, 30 years. Refrigerator, you might have your own certain warranty, and that could be 5 years, 10 years. It all depends, but the contractor owns everything basically for a year. So when we start the punch list, substantial completion is granted, 1 year. So like if the building starts to settle, which every house settles, you see a crack, maybe you don't call him the first month about the crack. You call him 8 months down the road. Here's the rest of the list that Chief Achilles and Chief Pauls and his men have put together, or we have gone and done again. Here it is, now you guys have to fix these all.
And who's gonna monitor that once we're done? And you guys are done? You guys, so that's
We do.
part of your contract?
Yep, you own us way after the
They just
contract's
won't be
over.
sitting here.
Yeah.
Right.
We're gonna pay them on an hourly basis to.
One other schedule timing issue. Have movers been booked in their schedule to move the property from here down, or has that not happened yet?
So as long as it hasn't happened yet.
No, I believe, I know that Chief Paulus and I, specifically with Donegan, they're the biggest ones.
Yeah.
We're meeting with them on Wednesday to
Okay.
finalize when they're gonna move their stuff.
We're talking about the move from, I think, here.
Yeah,
The stuff
yeah.
here, down there.
So the stuff from here,
And the
I-
person who is in charge of it's not here tonight.
I think it's minimal stuff, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think there's a whole bunch of items, but I believe it's at least been started to be
I think they wanna use
coordinated.
it.
Yeah.
Well, they gotta have some, I mean, there's some.
Oh, yeah.
For the dumpsters, right?
And Mark, is there, are we required to leave these buildings in a particular condition?
So I haven't had a conversation yet with St. Mark's as to what they're willing to accept. I know that the chiefs have been going through and doing some shredding and getting rid of some of the documents and everything that are no longer needed. I think Tom McLean had said we may have to look at some minor disposal costs for some of the electronics,
Yeah.
which, you know, would be a problem to leave in here. But I haven't had that conversation with St. Mark's as to what they'll accept for us to leave.
Okay.
But what about like all the stuff on the walls and stuff?
Well, I would think a lot of the stuff on the walls, I mean, the chief would have to, I mean, a lot of that stuff is gonna come and make its way to the new station, but, you know, anything that's left, I just need to understand what, you know, what they're gonna, what it's okay, because I think that I would expect within 90 days of us vacating, they're gonna have the wrecking ball here.
Right, so they're gonna say they want nothing, I'm sure,
Right.
the less the better.
As little as possible, because they're gonna have to pay to get rid of it.
I assume you're coordinating with other departments to make sure there isn't something in these buildings that maybe police or fire don't need, but another department that.
I'm trusting the chiefs to identify what we have, like, for example, you know, these tables and chairs and everything are newer than, you know, they have useful life. They may find their way to the senior center, but I know that they've already been designated. If they're not going, then they'll be utilized in other departments, so there'll be things
I'm
like
just
that.
looking at like overhead projectors and
Yep,
thinking through buildings that may not have one yet.
Sure.
All right. Any other questions on the change orders before we go to invoices? Okay, Vertex invoice dated July 3rd. Any questions on this for the Vertex team? All right, I'll move that we accept the invoice as presented. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Goodney. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Next was other vendor invoices per the Vertex letter dated, I think he's got a typo, it says June 12th, but I got it like July 3rd, so I'll go with that. It's for a total of $11,580.63, one to RFS Corp. For the water main and two to Lakeside Sewerage for prior septic work. Is there any questions on these? All right. I'll make a motion that we approve them as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Goodney. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, that carries unanimously. Last but not least, the CTA requisition number 13. Are there any questions on this one?
Have you tried to ever reconcile what they call change orders down here to the Vertex spreadsheet?
Yes, because the Vertex spreadsheet includes CCDs, and there's a...
Well, it also includes change order 14, which is what we're approving. Well, I thought we were going to do tonight, but I guess not. Anyway, so I.
Well, that
can
was,
you-
that we did change order
If you
14.
can reconcile, I just want to know that somebody has truly reconciled what they showed down
I
here,
mean,
'cause I can't get it.
I would view that as the town accountant's job, but I think you also have the significant retainage is also what I'm, like, that's why I think these meetings that we're gonna have over the next couple,
But this still ties, this ties out up there, and the change comes out after, so I
Right.
should be able to take that and go back, but I can't do it.
the problem is the John Lemieux spreadsheet is just for the 22 million for the public safety building. CTA views this as three projects in one, which includes CPC funding and a separate, that's where your delta is.
His spreadsheet, it's got he actually does pick up the golf course, but maybe he doesn't pick up the piece funded by CPC.
Correct.
Okay, he picks up the article funding.
But it doesn't flow into,
Okay.
The
I just
total.
want to make sure somebody at least knows where.
That's
the
what I think-
because I don't.
that's what I think you should make sure you're comfortable with
Okay.
at the meeting.
Jason, on page 14 of the packet, there's a revision to the percentage of building, total base building, and it went from 76%, someone wrote in 95.9%, cross that off. Is there any, you see what I'm saying there?
This is on the water line, not the CTA requisition.
Right.
I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that. And the water line's been done for a while, that was just bringing it up to the building, I'm assuming.
Okay.
And we still haven't paid them everything yet, it looks like, so there's still retainage in here. But that work is done, is what you're saying? Yes. Like, you turn a faucet on the building, the water flows.
Not today.
Thank you.
All right, so on CTA payment application 13, is there any questions on this one? All right, then I'll make a motion that we approve it as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Goody. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All right, that carries unanimously. So we already talked about the project budget, so I think goal would be that we have that meeting before the next meeting, can kind of report out to the committee, kind of on what the to-dos are. And then we'll come back on that. We've already talked about the project schedule. In terms of a meeting schedule, we currently have on the books 2 weeks from tonight, June 22nd here, and then August 5th here. And then that should hopefully be the last of Main Street meetings, and we should hopefully be transitioning down the road. So what I would propose is that we continue our 2-week cadence and look at August 19th. So continue to August 19th, which hopefully, if all goes well, that would also be the first day that the departments are operating out of that facility. So as long as it has a certificate of occupancy, though, we'll be able to meet there. So the goal would be we meet in and around the time that the building opens, just kind of to do whatever business we have. Likely going to be a significant number of invoices at that point in time.
And that would be on the 19th of August?
And then if we went 2 more weeks, it'd be Labor Day, so I'm gonna just suggest we hold until we get to August, make sure 2 weeks from now, we're still at August 13th, and then agree on what we're gonna need to do from there. 'Cause I think we'll have a few more busy weeks, and then hopefully it's just invoices from there on out, and just understanding what's open and what obstacles the departments are running into, if any, hopefully none. That sound good? All right, so all I'm doing is adding Monday, August 19th, tentatively scheduled for down the street. And just to be clear, the certificate of occupancy is supposed to be on the 13th, but it takes them time to move down the street. Any other business the committee wants to conduct tonight? Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Wood. All in favor? All right, we're adjourned.
That was the Boston.